walk from a chord progression to that finger picking that I was playing on the intro and show you the process so you can do this with your own playing. Chords up on the screen, we have an E minor, A minor, C, and B7, which you can bar, or you can play 4, 3, 2, 0. Let's go ahead and throw the chord progression up now. If you want to print out chords, chord progression, and the tabs for this lesson, you can do so by becoming a Patreon, link in the notes, as well as the first comment. So the chord progression is going to let the E minor play for the first 4 beats-ish. 1, 2, 3, 4, and. A minor on the and. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So lots of changes on the and. That's a cool little trick that you can do in your songwriting to give something a little more movement and urgency. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. A strum pattern I was doing was down, up, 1, and 2, and 3, 4, and up on the A minor, 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So 1, and 2, and 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. So that's what we're going to transform into this finger picking. If you're still here, we do these lessons every Wednesday and Saturday, so make sure you subscribe. All right, so tabs up for this first section now. I want to make this finger picking because I'm playing with another person, or I want to add a finger picking part, or I want to make the whole song finger pick. One thing I can do is start to outline these chords. Now, because the changes are on the ands and frequent, it won't be something like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and 2 and 3 and 4, and, which is what most of us think finger picking is. So let's first look at how to transform this to something that is finger picking, but maybe a little more lively. Over the E chord, we're going to do 1 and 2 and 3. Thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb. 1 and 2 and 3, 4, and. On the and, what I'm going to do is just pinch these 2 strings in the middle. With finger picking, you can play 2 strings at the same time, and you don't necessarily need the root note. This is an A minor chord, but I'm only playing a C and an E. That's okay. So that first measure would be 1 and 2 and 3, 4, and. Now what we're going to do is with the C, something similar, but not the same 2 notes. We want to give it a little more movement. We're going to pluck with our fingers here the E string and the 3rd fret of the A string of our C chord. So we get 1 and 2 and 3, 4, and 1 and 2 and 3 and. And then we're going to fret the 2nd fret here and play the open A. You could do both. We're going to and, okay? 3 and. Then on the 4th beat, we're going to come down and finger pick this note, which comes from either shape that you want. So that will be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Boom. Back to the E minor. Cool thing about that B7 to E minor. Slowly. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Slowly. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. On that last one, I accidentally forgot to get the open A in there. All right, this time I want you to count in your head, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's pretty cool already. But one of the cool things is all we did was take these chords and just play notes in them. This is an E minor. This is an E minor. This is an A minor. This is an A minor. This is a C. This is a C. This is a B7. And this is a B7. These chords are all over the fretboard because these notes that make the chords are all over the fretboard. Now that system I just did there is something called caged, and if you want to dive deep into it, I'll link a video right here. It's another video, another topic, but if you want to take this kind of finger picking to the maximum, it would behoove you to become a little more proficient at the cage system. Tabs up on the screen, our riff now sounds like this. Okay, and that just plays in a loop. Now you're probably thinking, how is that finger picking? I thought finger picking was this. Which is finger picking, right? Finger picking is just playing the notes in the chord one at a time. But those are all notes in our E minor chord. E note, our root note, G note, 3rd fret there, and E note, another E note, the octave. So the rhythm here is 1 and 2 and I just bar here, so I don't have to go 1 and 2 and. I go 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and that becomes our finger picking for the E minor. Now that's a little hard to see how these are the notes in the E minor, but if you have a low G, you can see it a little easier with this E minor shape that's barring the 7th fret, ring finger on the 9. Here it would be 9 9 7 7. But this is low G or high G friendly. All right, now that replaces our E minor. If you want to do that, you have to understand a concept called arpeggios, which is just playing the notes one at a time. So all we did was took this E minor, and instead of strumming it or finger picking 1 and 2 and, we did 1 and 2 and. That's very beneficial to understand the cage system so you can see these arpeggios all over the fretboard. Then over the A minor, we're going to play simply an A note. So instead of finger picking crazy here, we're simply going to hit the root note. Again, we're sticking to chord tones. The A chord is an A, or well, it's A, C, E. A note. So if I want to finger pick over that a little more originally, I can play any of those 3 notes anywhere I want on the fretboard. C, A, E. That's also an A minor chord. So what I'm doing here is thinking about those notes, visualizing the fretboard, using things like the cage system. But if you don't know the fretboard, you can Google image the notes. There's plenty of ways to learn it. It is beneficial knowing the fretboard. That should be a long-term goal. We have videos on how to we do have videos on how to learn the fretboard as well. I'll put those in the description. So we're just playing just the root note, just the A note there. We're doing it right on that change on the and. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, next chord is a C. This is a C chord here based on this G shape. Now, if you don't know how to move that shape, that's fine, but let me explain to you what's going on. A C chord, similar to an A minor, only one note difference, is C, E, G. Here I have a C note. Here I have an E note. Now, it comes from this G shape, and I know it's not a G chord, it's a C, but here it's a G. So we think about it like a G chord. G, A flat, A, B flat, B, C. So I'm just targeting these chord tones. Again, if you can't move the shapes around, all you have to do is make the shape you know, think about the notes in there, C, E, G, and find any of those notes that you want anywhere on the fretboard. Doing the C note and the E note. So to keep with the groove though, we want to play this on the and, 2, and 3. Now a B7 has B note, D flat, F sharp, and the A note. So there is a B major right below the C. So to keep it kind of cool, like instead of, as opposed to just moving that idea down, it still lands on the change. So it's 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3. Well, excuse me. 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and boom. Back to the start. So very slowly, counting it out. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1. And there you go, friends. That's how you use fingerpicking and arpeggios to create riffs and dynamic fingerpicking that will make your songs more interesting and more advanced. How you practice this, I encourage you to take a chord progression you know, even a basic one like a C and a G, right? Great, again, for creating intros. You can use these ideas for solos. You can mix them with scales too. You can use this idea to create entire solos. You can use this idea to play as the second ukulele without playing the same thing. There's so many applications. So again, get this one under your fingers. Take a chord progression you know. Write the notes out so you know what they are. See those notes all over the fretboard. And then try to create something unique and different. Believe me, this exercise will take your playing to a whole new planet.